participating and figuring stuff out. But the other thing I want to let everybody know is, let's see, what, just clicked in. So this is now recording because they're going to share this with the GCE community. People may join the meeting in between. Like, I don't know, did anybody's parents get this link or comment on it?
I don't know.
Nobody's, okay. So this is a sign of just how rapidly things are changing. Like, we, as a faculty, we met at 11 o'clock and we're like, yeah, let's invite everybody. We weren't even sure until about an hour ago. So I didn't know if anybody had heard from a parent like, oh, I got this link. We may have people join in. Maybe, maybe not. We'll see. If you hear like somebody joining the meeting while you're presenting, keep going. Don't be afraid. It's just people may be coming in and out. Order. Today's order. First up is going to be Will. Second up is Chemo, Kaylee, Kyle, and Noel. Will, Chemo, Kaylee, Kyle, Noel. Good with that?
Yes.
You know what? I'm asking that question, but at the same time, like, Marcus created a program, so
we
kind of
have much of a choice, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Will's right. Like, the program was created, so I just want to make sure you're aware of that schedule. So, other than, like I said, maybe people will join the meeting. Anybody have any last-second tech questions? I think you all have practiced sharing screen.
I'm not done. I can't embed like the thingy on the thing.
Okay.
On your blog.
Will, say that again?
The slideshow on your blog, right, Kyle?
Slideshow? No.
Yeah, or whatever you have, I mean.
No, I'm trying to embed a SoundCloud thing on the blog.
Oh, there should be like under on the SoundCloud page, right? Where there's like a share tab.
Yeah, and I'm on the, and it says embed, and then there's like this code thing, and then options and all that stuff. It's kind of,
yeah, you gotta. There's a HTML here. You mind if I share my screen real quick?
Yeah, go for it, Will.
I
can troubleshoot.
So when you're editing your blog, you gotta put it in here. There's HTML.
Oh.
Yeah, this is what lets me put in my slideshow right here. Yeah, you just kind of stick it in there.
Okay, one sec. And then what do I do?
You just stick it in there and it works.
Someone named Charles. Yeah, Charles wanted to join our thing.
Do I like copy and paste something?
Yeah, do you know that code, that HTML code it gives you when you hit like embed?
Yeah.
That like line of code, you copy that and then you put it into the HTML tab of the blog.
And then when you publish it, it'll look like the SoundCloud.
Yeah,
got it.
It'll like link the SoundCloud.
I just did it. Thank you.
Nice.
Yep. No problem, dude.
That's awesome.
Nice shot.
I mean, hat tip Will, hat tip Kaylee, helping them out. That's called community learning.
Hey.
All while we're quarantined or social distancing, however you call it. No, nice work. Any other tech questions? Everybody knows how to create or make a presentation. We're gonna figure it out. I mean, this is gonna be an experience. So here we are. Let's go for it. Let's kick it off. So one more time, that order. We're going Will, Chemo, Kaylee, Kyle, and then Noel. I think it's 140 is the last one that is scheduled. So if we're feeling good, Will, I'm gonna let you have the floor. You got 10 minutes scheduled for everybody. Q&A, presentation. Go for it.
Wait, we're doing it now?
Let's start it off. Yeah, we're scheduled to start at 1 o'clock, but let's go.
104.
Uh-oh.
This is final presentations, Kyle.
Oh,
Just and out of curiosity, does everybody know the shortcut on your keyboard to mute?
yeah.
Control D.
Control D is mute. Control E is camera, just to turn things on and off. So I turn myself off for what it's worth. How you doing, Will?
Give me a sec. Okay, so for like my final presentation, what I'm basing it around is how do people perceive time and what like effects does it have on our minds, since we didn't really like go over that in our class in light, sound, and time, which is obviously what I'm basing this off. The last unit, which is time, where we learned about we learned a lot about like physics and the concept of time, and the theory of relativity was something we went over. But we never really went into like how time, like we perceive time. So I like decided to do a little more research on that. And then this is like, as we learned in class that everyone has different ways of viewing time. And then we have these 5 different types of time perspective. Those that look towards the future, and then 2 types of past and present. Which do you guys identify with if you're reading along like with me?
That's interesting. I feel like I could identify with each of those at different times.
Right, I think everyone can. Though, like, I'm talking like for the majority of the time. What do you think?
Probably future for me.
Why?
I don't know. I guess I'm always thinking about like what's happening next and like what do I need to get done. And like what I don't know, like what should I be getting excited for in the future?
Yeah, that's probably future leaning perspective.
It's weird. I see like the past is negative and positive, but there's no like present positive. Like right now, and you know, a lot of it is me just trying to tell myself like, hey, everything's different in so many ways in the past week, but it's still all right.
I suppose it'd be more like optimism.
Yeah, like right. It's just like generally I try to stay optimistic, and so I don't know if that's future because I'm optimistic that I'm going into the future. I don't know. It's not like.
Yeah, I'd say that's probably future.
Because I don't really identify with either the present ones like super strongly. It's not like I'm optimistic, so I'm like, yeah, let's live in the moment. Like,
I think it's more of a question of do you think about what goals you're trying to achieve, or do you think about what you're doing right now, or more about the past?
that's a good question, and it depends. Like some things, like this. Let's be honest. This week of final presentations, I don't know if everybody else has felt this. Like I have felt not necessarily goal based, but just like get through this moment, like because everything is so kind of experimental. Whereas normally I might have like a goal, like okay, action project in 3 weeks. It's a different mentality. My 2 cents.
Yeah. Anyone else want to speak up about which one they think they identify with?
Mhm.
Okay. So this is the part about what happens if we don't, or like don't know what time it is, or we can't tell. Um, as most of you know, like humans have their own 24-hour internal clock. I did a bit of research and found out that this internal clock is called a circadian rhythm. That word's based off of cicadas, and it's pretty essential to like living beings, plants, animals, humans, survival. The circadian rhythm is more or less a 24-hour period, although it fluctuates between like based on certain events. In regular day-to-day life, the rhythm is set to reset to the eternal external clock time by things like light, exercise, and social interaction. So basically, what the circadian rhythm is, it's like an instinctual clock built into us through like evolution. Um, because like our ancestors, for example, would spend as little time as possible like in the dark, awake, and like as much time as possible in the when there's light outside because it's easier to hunt obviously when you can see. Um, when a human doesn't have like if you were to put somebody in a cave with no light at all, uh, their body would revert back to this like instinctual clock rather than whatever the outside time is. So instead of waking up and like like if it's morning outside and they don't know that, they just run on 24-hour cycles. They don't follow the same like regular clock pattern. Uh, yeah. And then it's like,
So they make their own sleep cycle.
yeah, basically.
Yeah.
Um, I think it's a little more complicated than that. I didn't read like I read like a psychological article about it, but I didn't read like the whole thing. I think it's pretty interesting.
I have a question, Will, in terms of this. Is
Yeah.
You're giving an example like a caveman, like sort of thing. When you were reading the article, did you find some like more contemporary examples, like something like related
Solitary
to?
confinement was
I'm
one.
sorry?
Solitary confinement
Solitary confinement. Okay.
because or like prison in general, I guess.
Okay.
Um, it's hard to keep a sense of time when there's like no light. There's only artificial light. Um, yeah, like you don't have a clock. You don't have like the sun. You just have like the cycle of your body to tell you what time you think it is. And that might not necessarily follow the external clock time.
Thank you.
And then I have a little bit here about like go outside, get sunlight when you can. It's much better for your mental health and internal clock than staying inside all day. Hold up. Even with the quarantine, it's still something you should do. And that's it.
Hey, good job.
Thanks.
Thanks, Will. Well, we have a couple minutes for Q&A. I also think also think it's important in terms of because we're trying to do we're trying to simulate some of those community aspects of final presentations, which is representing our work, having people from the community come and throughout. I know that the students in here, we all know each other. We did have a guest enter, so I'd be curious if you would be able to introduce yourself briefly.
Wait, sorry, can you repeat that?
I see we have a guest who entered, and I'm curious if the guest would like to introduce themselves. Just trying to stimulate some of those community aspects of what we have here during final presentation. Catherine?
They're muted.
Oh, yeah, sorry. I just didn't know how to use the mic. It's me. It's Catherine.
Hello.
Hi, Will. I saw your presentation last time, too. I thought this was really interesting.
Yeah, I remember you.
Oh, yeah, I'm Louise's mom.
Yep.
So I was just reading through it, but I haven't read the whole thing yet. But I'm excited to see what you're working on.
Thank you. Anyone have some questions, feedback for Will?
Oh, I have a question if no one else is talking right now.
Yeah.
I guess I was wondering if I didn't get all the way through your presentation. Did you manage to get to to find out more about how our perception of time changes as we get older? And if there's any like research why that happens?
I didn't actually think on that. I was like mainly focusing on what happens when we don't have like I said, like in the dark cave example, where it's like what happens when we don't have any way to tell what time it is outside.
Oh, okay, yeah.
Yeah, but that's definitely something I could have included.
So this is more about like circadian rhythm than perception of time?
Yeah, I guess that's a good
Okay.
way to put it.
Oh, sorry.
Will, your presentation makes me think of something a friend and I did a long time ago. So if you can all see outside right now, it's sort of a gray, just like flat gray light. Like you can't really see the sun. You can't see. It just looks gray. Once upon a time, a friend of mine and I went hiking. It was like a couple-day hike, and we're like, hey, let's do it without watches. Let's just like live by the sun, right? And the first day was fine because the sun was up in the sky. And the second day was like this. And you were just hiking, and you had no idea what time it was. You're just like looking around like, should I want lunch? Like you didn't even know. You're just like trying to think about what time it was. It was really disorienting. It was like kind of uncomfortable. I was like a little freaked out. Usually you think of something like hiking. Yay, let's have a good time. But I felt like, what am I doing? It was an interesting thing. So, you mentioned things like emphasizing darkness, like solitary confinement. It can actually happen in like light. It's just kind of a flat light, I guess you would say. So that's my perception when I think about your presentation.
Okay. Cool.
Anyone else have any feedback questions for Will? Well, we were talking as faculty. We were talking earlier about like, oh, what if things like are like people have less than 10 minutes? Okay, I think we're a little over 10 minutes because I know Chemo was scheduled at 1:10. Thank you, Will. Let's switch it up, Chemo. If you are willing to give a presentation.
Yes.
Thank you. And as you're doing so, I see we have another guest joined, Cheryl. I know that a lot of you have met Cheryl through the building, so welcome.
Hello. Okay. Okay, I see. Okay. I think now can everyone see what's going on? Or okay.
Yeah, it just popped up. Looks like it just popped up.
Okay. So basically for my final presentation, I chose the guiding question, like how do you collect someone else's story? And we like kind of started off equality with that. And so I kind of revised it to how do you collect someone else's story with a fair perspective, because like one of the main things we kind of talked about in equality was like how history is told in like a lot of different ways. And it's kind of, it's hard to know like what's true and like, I don't know, like what's fair and all that stuff. And I kind of connected it to, I guess I'll just start. So this is my little, it's not really anything special. It's kind of mostly just me talking. But so I kind of also connected it to last term in journalism, because we talked a lot about like interviewing and like how journalism can be kind of dangerous because like you might like have a story that someone else doesn't want to like get out, or it just like we kind of talked about like the proper way to interview someone. So like for the Meaning of Life AP, we like chose like a person or people to interview, and I interviewed like 2 of my best friends, and like this is the link to my blog if like anyone wants to see that. But like it's kind of just basically like the main thing that I took from it was like a journalist, like if you're interviewing someone, like you basically do as little of talking like as possible, because people like to fill awkward silences like if they're being interviewed, so they'll just keep talking and talking, and like you will get like basically like the full story. And so yeah, I feel like interviewing is like a big part of collecting someone's story. But for equality, like the main thing that we talked about like to start it was like mainstream versus marginalized. And like I'm sure everyone knows like how like in middle school you were kind of taught that like Columbus is a hero, and then you kind of like come to GC, or like, you know, you grow up and you kind of find out that he was less of a hero than like history books make it seem, because he like killed a bunch of people. Yeah, like all that stuff you already know. And like you generally read historical events by reading history books and like mainstream like voices and stuff, but you can also learn a lot through like individuals who are marginalized, like who might not have the power to tell their stories, and like
other opinions, right?
What'd you say?
Like other opinions, right? It's good.
Yeah,
It's always good to get.
Like it's kind of like we talked about fake news too, like how do you feed through that, like you literally have to go through like a bunch of different sources and like decide for yourself like what's true and like what's not, or what's biased and all that. And then like we also did this other AP where we had to write a textbook chapter, and my topic was the war on drugs, and I talked a lot about like incarceration, and I interviewed someone who was incarcerated for like possession of marijuana, and it was cool to like interview someone who's like spent time like in prison for that, and now like people are on the street like smoking weed because it's legal. So like just like I liked this idea because it was like collecting someone else's story in like the hopes to educate, which is like what you normally like think of it as, like instead of just like facts, like you get like stories from other people, and like then it's just kind of like you get like a full circle of things. This is also the link to that blog post. That interview was really cool though. Yeah, and then I also tried to connect it to social entrepreneurship, which was my STEAM class. And for like one of our first APs, we did like an improvement plan for the school. And so I chose GC social media because GC's Instagram needs help. And I interviewed like Marcus and Hugh and other people on Street Team with me to figure out like how to do that. So it was just kind of like wrapping it around like how do you collect someone else's story to educate? How do you collect someone else's story to improve? And so yeah, this is also the link to that blog as well. And that's pretty much all I got. Yeah. So should I keep sharing or should I keep going? Like,
you still have some time, Chemo. So obviously, if you want to comment on anything specific you learned from those, I'm seeing sort of like a greatest hits kind of thing coming from your presentation. Like, you know, here are some different blog posts I've done, and here's what I've learned. So if you want to speak to anything specific in the crowd, if we have any questions. It's gone from an audience to a crowd now. I don't know if that's a good change or a bad change, but yeah.
Oh wow, okay.
Back and forth and feedback.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I tried really hard to find because I really liked this interview about incarceration. I had an audio clip of it that I really wanted to share, but I couldn't find it, and I was really sad.
Actually, I did have a question about that in terms of the interview. Was this individual incarcerated during your interview?
No, so they were not incarcerated during the interview. They were incarcerated like a year prior, but I did it over the phone, and it was like I used he chose to remain anonymous, so I didn't like use his name or anything. But yeah, it was cool to get his perspective, and I kind of used like what I learned in journalism like during that interview, because I only asked him 2 questions, but we talked for like 15 minutes he talked for like 15 minutes, and he just like kept going, and I ended up not even needing to ask like half my questions because I just let him speak, and it ended up being like more genuine, I thought. So
That's great.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
In the chat, Cheryl has asked, what was your big takeaway on how we can hear more marginalized voices?
I would say just like don't go to the news for everything that you like want to know about. Like I would definitely say social media is like a big thing, because like people who can't get their stories out on the news just go to Twitter and like stuff like that. So like checking all of your sources is like a big thing, especially like that's what we talk about a lot in journalism. And like equality too, just like making sure that you're gathering sources from all across the board, and you're not like just going to one source to figure out like what's going on in the world and how people feel about it.
Thank you. Other questions? Cheryl's follow-up. Thanks. How can GCE do a better job on social media? Questions pop down. How can GCE do a better job on social media with that?
I definitely think that you should check out my blog post for that, because that was literally like the entire action project. I just used the kind of interviewing perspective to connect it to this final presentation. But yeah, I had a lot of ideas about improving GCE's social media. If you want, like, I don't know if I could give people access to this link, but definitely click on that. I talked a lot about like student input and like using a Dropbox or something that students can like input pictures, and like we can kind of make it ourselves, because what we have now is like, I don't know, it seems random to me.
Click it right now, just real, still have some time. I'm just curious, you're saying.
It's a lot of writing.
It is a lot of writing, yeah. But that's cool. Oh, so you're doing was it the SWOT analysis I saw in those pictures?
Yeah, it's like SWOT, and then we also did like the Maslow's hierarchy of needs.
Very cool.
Okay. This is kind of like my conclusion, sort of.
Cool. That sounds really, really interesting.
Yeah.
In terms of that. Cheryl just chimed in. I will definitely check it out. So, hey, there you go. You are starting a conversation. I love it.
There we go.
And that's really cool. Thank you, Chemo. Any other questions? Any other feedback for Chemo on her work, on your presentation? How did you feel this week doing the digital work, Chemo?
I felt pretty good about it. I'm pretty much, I feel like I'm more productive at home, which is kind of weird, but yeah.
Okay. No. I understand. Lots of adjustments this week. But I appreciate your presentation. I appreciate you sharing that stuff. Follow up on those questions. Thank you, Chemo.
Yeah.
All right. Okay, so on our schedule we have Kaylee. Kaylee next. How do you feel, Kaylee?
I don't know. I'm excited to share mine.
Okay. Yeah, if you're feeling ready, please take over.
Okay. Okay, so I have my blog here. So basically I created a podcast after making because in our first unit of Who Am I, we made a podcast telling what our like truths and beliefs are. And in the class Who Am I, we talk a lot about philosophy and just a bunch of ideas from a bunch of different people. And so the guiding question that I came up with was, how do ideas from the past affect us today? So yeah, I was able to create a podcast talking about that, and I got my brother to be in it. So I guess I'll just play it. What is unconsciousness? Where does it take us? What do our dreams tell us? Well, two psychologists by the name Carl Jung and Gustav Freud came up with two different approaches for how to interpret our unconscious minds. Both Freud and Jung split the psyche into three different parts: the id, the ego, and the superego. The id holds our unconscious drives, mainly sex. Our ego forms our conscious perceptions, or what keeps our reality a reality. It is also like a balance for the id and the superego. The superego is the portion of the psyche that will mediate the drives of the id through socially accepted behaviors. Freud was the teacher of Jung. Jung decided to take a different approach to define the psyche. The categories which Jung splits the psyche are the ego, personal unconscious, and the collective unconscious. The ego is the consciousness. The personal unconscious holds the memories, and the collective unconscious holds our experiences as a species. Gustav Freud had a big impact on the way we think about psychology today. Freud came up with a method on how to interpret dreams. He used the following terms as tools to better define what dreams meant. He used condensation, displacement, and secondary elaboration. Condensation is the joining of two or more images/ideas together. Displacement is the transformation of a person or object someone is really concerned about. Secondary elaboration is when the unconscious mind strings together wish-fulfilling images in a logical order of events. So tell me about your dream.
Well, basically, it was almost a nightmare because it's where I'm in this arcade game, and see, I'm the guy, and I'm trying to get to the end of this long hallway, and in the hallway, each, say, foot or so, there's a door on each side of the wall, and there is a second floor, and it's basically the same hallway. Now, I'm trying to reach the end because there's an end door, and I'm trying to get to that door, and when I start running, these doors behind me, or windows, they start opening up, and these bat creatures that are huge, they start attacking me, and then once one hits me, I'm back at the beginning. And so that just keeps happening over and over, and I never reach the end. And this dream keeps reoccurring. Like I dream about it a lot.
Displacement theory, I came to the idea that there is something happening in his life that he wants to happen, but is scared of what will happen if he does. He is uncomfortable with where he is and wants something to happen, but worries about pursuing whatever will happen. After telling my brother what I thought his dream meant, he told me that it seemed very accurate and told me that it seemed like I read his mind. I found this interesting because I had just used some simple definitions from a brilliant psychologist and was able to interpret it as if he was the one interpreting it. René Descartes was a French philosopher who came to the conclusion that God must exist. He came to this realization when he started to doubt everything. The only thing that he could trust and not doubt was the fact that he was doubting. He says, "As a result, my being was not completely perfect, for I saw clearly that it was a greater perfection to know than to doubt." And thus, he came to the conclusion that there had to be a higher power. So, yeah. So I worked on that. That's what I was working on this.
Good job, dude.
Any questions?
Kyle, were you saying something?
Mm-mm.
So Kelly, one more time, what was the guiding question that prompted the
Yeah,
That-
so
motivated your work?
yeah, so it was how do ideas from the past affect us today? Because I noticed that, I mean, like in that class, Who Am I? We talk about a lot of different people, and we like study all of their different ideas, and like how they use their ideas and like apply it to their everyday life. And so I thought that was really interesting. So I was able to kind of use their ideas and apply it kind of with my life, but it wasn't really my life since it was my brother's. Because we talked about interpreting dreams. So that was a part of that course.
The dream he was talking about, like, did you make up that dream for the purpose of that podcast, or was that like an actual dream he had?
Yeah, that was an actual dream that he had. And so one of our assignments was taking someone, like using somebody's dream and using one of the different like tools or like definitions that Freud came up with, and like basically analyzing it. So that was like a real dream that he had, and I was able to analyze it.
And when you were analyzing, were you the perspective of, was it Freud or Jung?
Freud.
Okay. You didn't ask him which arcade game he was stuck in.
No, I did not.
That was the first question I was thinking. Like, well, which one? Like, that's just me.
Yeah, I guess I didn't think of that.
Any other questions for Katie on her work?
Mm.
Well, I'll put one more question at you then. Do you believe that dream analysis, or is there any skepticism about dream analysis, or what different viewpoints do you have in terms of like just how effective it is? Like, you said, oh, that means there's something you want to do, but you're a little afraid to try, or something like. Is that like the interpretation, or?
I don't know. I think that dreams can, like, I don't think we were given dreams just for like no reason. I think that they can help us through like situations. I don't think that they should be taken literally all the time, and like I don't think that we can always like interpret them correctly. But I do think that sometimes like they can help us through like situations. Whether that's like remembering something in the past or like something that could happen in the future, or even like the present, like working through something. I think that our dreams can help us like figure that out.
I agree with that.
Hugh, you agree? Can you elaborate on that?
Nope, I just agree.
Cool.
No example of how a dream, you say, because Kaylee was saying how, yeah, it can help you through things, or personal reflection on how dreams, the past influences your past views influence the current. I think that was your guiding question.
Yeah, or like just like ideas possibly from other people. Like how do we use them today? Like in a modern way is kind of what I was trying to get at.
My opinion about dreams is, I just think they're my brain's way of clearing stuff out. But that's I think my brain, if I have a crazy busy day or something, get a good night's sleep, I have these crazy dreams. I think it's my brain just trying to forget stuff. That's my opinion, but take it for what it is.
Yeah.
I have trouble remembering my dreams. Like, it's weird, especially because like when my alarm rings, like the first thing I do is like jump out of bed, like I gotta get going. And I feel like as soon as you get moving, like I can't remember anything. There's a couple of days when you just lie in bed, sometimes I'll start to remember them, but I can't remember dreams. Like
Yeah.
I rarely remember them, but I don't know what that says about me. But there you go. Dreams can be a reflection of me, or they can tell me something about that. Any other questions for Kaylee? Well, thank you so much for your presentation. I appreciate that. Sharing the podcast worked out well. And I guess as we move through the program, we got two more. We got Kyle, then we have Noel. Kyle, how do you feel in terms of presentation?
Wait, so yeah. Yeah, I did the blogger and all that and the podcast, but like it's not. Should I just like present now and stuff?
It's your time.
All right.
It's your time.
Wait, I gotta blog. So basically, I talked about how like I asked the question, how meaningful are we? And I also like went in detail, like asking about like humans and basically how, like, if we really have a meaning or if we really have an impact on the universe and stuff. The podcast thing is 6 minutes long and it's mostly me rambling. Y'all want to hear it?
We're here to present.
So, all right.
So if you feel like that's the best way to get across your presentation, your work towards that, what was your question again? How meaningful are we?
Yep.
If the podcast is your tool to get to an answer, then that's what you're going to present. If you feel more comfortable facilitating a discussion, but obviously these are things that hopefully you have planned ahead about. If you have some media, let's work from that.
I didn't really plan ahead because I just did it like in 10 minutes. But
okay. Well, you can acknowledge that process when you're thinking about, say, the next time through this, or if we're on digital e-school, remote learning in the future. It is your time, Kyle. So share with us something to pursue your question from.
Okay. Okay, I'm just. All right, everyone, listen. So, for my final presentation, I'm gonna be talking about humans and if we have meaning or not, or like how meaningful we are. So, basically, that's my guiding question. How meaningful are we? I'm making this final presentation, like, it's gonna be for a class called Who Am I that I took with a teacher named Brent about philosophy and all that stuff, and we learned a lot about many philosophers like Socrates, Aristotle, Plato. There's some simple stuff about like reality, like if we have how much impact we have on the world and the universe. And yeah, I'm gonna be starting. So let's start off with how meaningful are we? So every day when you wake up, you just get up out of your bed, take a shower, brush your teeth, eat, do all the normal stuff. So do you ever think how much of an impact that has on the world? How much of an impact does the world have on the universe? That's another question for later. Anyways, whenever you turn on that water, you're taking water from the earth for you, for your personal, for your needs. All right? So think about that. Like, and every day you turn on that faucet just to get some water. And then once it goes down the faucet, it just turns to how meaningful is that? Like, how much of an impact does that have on the rest of humanity? There's many countries on Earth where, like, many people, they don't have access to clean water or food at all, and yet we can do that and get water every day. So that's another reason why I'm asking the question. But, like, also, are humans really, like, important? Like, the universe is so big, we can't really, I don't think we really know anything like 100%, and including what I just said. Like, whatever we think is reality could just be an illusion. Like, I have another theory. Good and evil, that is not real, that is an illusion. Humans were made that idea by saying, this is good, this is bad, so that's what you are, good and bad. But, like, yeah, I don't think there's a such thing as good and evil. That's just like what we made, and yeah, because it's all about, like, also, like if I were to buy a pair of Nestle Crunch or something and then give it to a friend because because they're, like, going through a hard time or something, then it made them feel better. That might be considered a good thing, right? But then if you think about Nestle Crunch and how, like, okay, let's just say that they're a corrupt company. Let's say, like, they make their chocolate out and, like, cause like, have slaves, like, making cocoa beans and doing all that stuff and then giving it to us. I'm giving some of my money to them, which is further letting them grow, and then, slavery. That's bad. But then what I'm doing is giving it to a friend, which is good. But we're complicated and simple. Humans are. But, like, I don't really think we're that meaningful, honestly. I think, I don't know. I'm still trying to figure everything out, and this was kind of rushed because, like, I don't really have time to do, like, all perfect and edited in a script or anything. Yeah, this was no script. Okay, what about, like, yeah. I mean, if we think about dimensions, like, we're in the third dimension or whatever, so we think of infinity in the universe as, like, just growing in the third dimension, but we never think of it as growing in the fourth dimension, if that was possible. So that's another, like, reason why we're so insignificant to everything else. We can't even begin to perceive. Like, let's say there's a flatlander, someone in the second dimension. They perceive infinity as everything but all flat. Everything is growing. It's super big, right? It is big for us too, but they also got up and down. I mean, they don't have up and down, but we do. So that's an infinity that's impossible for them to reach, no matter how much they added. They have infinity going everywhere else, which we have too, but worse, and we can perceive that, but they can't perceive the like, just going out, like going up or down. So that's like us. I'm sorry, this isn't okay. Okay, so, like, we're in the universe, right? We think of it. Let's say it's a bubble. Let's say it's just like a big bubble. You blow, and then it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Yeah, it's getting bigger. Sure, let's say it's getting bigger, or let's say it's infinite. It's infinite in the third dimension to what we perceive, but it could also be infinite in the fourth dimension, or even just infinitely small in the fourth dimension will still be infinitely big to us. It will still be impossible for us to reach. I mean, I don't know that. I don't really know if I know anything, but I know I have that's just my theory. Do our ideas really have any impact on everyone? Like, for real? Like, I don't know. Well, this wasn't really a podcast, more like a rant, but I really have to hurry, so I hope you all have a good day, and yeah.
So, yeah, that's basically, hold on, how do I get out? Yeah, that's it. I know it's all over the place, and stuff, and I kind of rambled. I rambled a lot in it, and I'm sorry, but I was basically trying to talk about how everyone, how like we're humans on a little dot on the universe, and we don't really know if like what we see or think is actually like real, and like how, and basically how meaningful or like how impactful we really are on everything, like the universe. And that's basically a quick summary on the rant slash podcast session or whatever.
Kyle, you put it out there. You put out something with some distinct individual style.
Thanks.
I think you're identifying the main issues you got about it, the main things that keep it from limiting the impact of what you got. You used the word rant, not me.
Yeah.
I'm asking you to reflect on structure, on process, because those things, that pulls things together. Style is one thing. Structure, process, that's critical. And guess what? This is not at you, because everybody's figuring out structure and process in like virtual school. We've done it for a week. We've got a lot of questions. We've got a lot of things to identify about it. But that's when I'm listening, that's what I'm thinking. I'm just thinking, okay, you know, there's a process, there's a structure. Can't sleep on that, because then free form, you see what happens about that.
Yeah.
Kyle, keep up on yourself. It's there. The ideas are there. Noelle, are you with us still?
Yeah.
How are you feeling about making your presentation?
Decent. Mine's pretty short, so.
Well,
All right.
guess what? That's not a problem in terms of you have the floor. We're able to more time for questions and answers.
Okay. Okay. Am I sharing my screen? Can you guys see it? Okay, no, never mind.
It's popping in. Yep.
All right. Okay. Okay, so I did my project, or my guiding question is, what is the future of renewable energy? It's from fuel class. Yeah. So to start, what is renewable energy? Renewable energy is energy that comes from renewable sources, which are naturally replenished in our human lifespan. It's a form of clean energy that comes from natural sources, solar, wind, geothermal, biomass, and hydropower. What's good about renewable energy? Renewable energy never runs out. It comes from sources that regenerate within the human lifespan, so we're able to use them constantly. Saves a lot more money than non-renewable energy resources or fossil fuels, even though you have a pretty big payment up front if you ever are thinking about getting it inside your home. Not only is it's healthy for our environment, it's healthy for our physical health as well. Future of renewable energy, part 1. This is a graph that shows how much more renewable energy that we've been using since 1980. I did 1980 through 2017 because 2017 is the most data we've got right now. So, yeah. According to several sources, Chicago is planning to become a completely carbon neutral city by the year 2040. They plan to have all of the buildings in Chicago run from completely clean and renewable energy by 2030, and then they want their buses to be completely electrified by 2040. Illinois has the second highest amount of solar jobs out of every state, and it ranked 13th in total solar jobs in the nation. And then if you're interested in investing or raising awareness for renewable energy, please go to these websites. Elevate Energy is a project that's like helping us get clean energy for our buildings. And then Chicago Renewable Energy Challenge. It's the challenge where we're supposed to get 100% clean energy by 2040, which is they're raising like awareness for it, right? Energy Quest is you can go there to like get equipment if you ever want to go from non-renewables to renewables in your home, and then ISEA, Illinois Solar Energy Association. Joya, stop. Okay, sorry, my sister was in the room. Yeah, and then this is a project. My guiding question, final presentation is based off. My guiding question is, what is the future of renewable energy? And the unit I did, or is what is the future of non-renewable energy? So I just switched it because I thought renewable energy is more interesting than non-renewables. Yeah, and that's my project. If you want to look at it, it's on my blog, and then there's my sources, and that's it.
Cool. Thank you, Noel.
Mm-hmm.
Any questions for Noel?
Not for me.
I have a couple questions that I could put out at you. Number one, you said, I think it's your third slide. Can you go click slide number 3 real quick? You said it saves a lot more money, but I thought it was sort of like a big reason we don't do it is a big reason we use fossil fuels because they are cheap. The fossil fuels are cheap. It's like, oh, just get the oil and like just start burning it and so forth. So when you say it saves a lot more, I'm like,
yeah, over time, it's like if you have a big upfront cost if you put it in your home, and then over time it goes down generally, and then
so you're talking about for a house, yeah? Because I mean we did that with the solar panels in our class and so forth.
Yeah.
Okay. What about on like a big scale, like just like? Did you find any research in terms of like on a big scale, like a power plant or anything like that?
No, I didn't look into that.
I guess the other question I had is, can you go to that last slide maybe the next to last before your slide? Or before your sources? Yeah, that one right there. How did you find those groups? Oh, back the one with the different groups.
So I went on Wikipedia. I looked up like or no, I didn't go on Wikipedia. Sorry, this was like energy groups in Illinois. I just looked that up and I like went through and saw ones that looked the most interesting, and I just put them here.
Cool. So that's fun because, well, you know, when we did the fuel class, I just like finding different groups because that's sort of how we find FEs during the term and so forth. Yeah. So that's really interesting that something interesting to check out in terms of those groups. See what they're up to. Anyone else have any questions? I'll give you a big thumbs up, Noel, for the graph because, you know, data is my language. I like numbers. Mm-hmm. And so showing me a graph, say, hey, that's pretty cool. I'm actually almost surprised the graph didn't go up even steeper. It was going up, but like
not as much as I thought. I thought it went up high or a lot higher. But
because according to your graph, like in 1980, there was still a lot of renewable. Obviously, it's going up since then, but like, wow, what was going on in 1980? I mean, did we have as many wind turbines and so forth? Yeah. Really cool. Thank you for your presentation. If no one has any other questions. Before I say, hey, ta-da, congratulations, pat yourself on the back, we did it, we're all through. As long as everybody is still here, and I'm just checking, we got everybody still here. Yeah, we got the whole group. before saying goodbye to this final presentation room, just really quickly, I want to make sure everybody understands the last two things that need to happen. So can somebody jump in? Does anybody know the last two things that you need to do before it is spring break?
The end of
Kaylee.
term survey.
End of term survey. Awesome. Now, this is a little weird because it's done by advisory. So, for instance, Will and Noel, you go to the advisory classroom that that I've created or you have with me, and you'll find it there. Kaylee, I don't know if your advisor is at Brent, I believe. Go to your advisor's classroom. End of term survey. You will find that with your advisor. Kaylee, do you know when that needs to be completed by?
I do not.
Okay. We're looking for that this afternoon. So that is something that should take 10 minutes. I don't know. I mean, usually we do it in the AMP during like the last week class. It takes, 10, 15 minutes. Check with your advisors about that. Thank you, Kaylee. End of term survey with your advisor classroom. That should be there. Get that done this afternoon. Anybody know the other last thing? And then, ta-da, we're done for spring break. The other last thing is you have check-ins with your spring core classes. So, for instance, the freshmen, you'll be meeting with me for food, and you'll be meeting with Brent for food for thought. Juniors, I believe, what is it? Urban planning and I don't know what the other one is. Rhetoric or something. I'm not exactly sure even. That doesn't reflect well on me, but you have a meeting with your core teachers for the spring term class. Last thing I'll also mention, does anybody know what the first day of spring term is planning to be?
April 2nd.
All right, Kimo was on that. She was ready for that question. Yes, if you look at the calendar, Monday is like March 31st or something. We're not starting until April 2nd. And Kimo, is that a Thursday or a Wednesday? I can't remember which.
It's a Thursday.
It's a Thursday, yeah. So we have spring break next week. The following week, we have school starting Thursday because the faculty is going to get together Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and figure out exactly what we need to, what it's going to look like. Is it going to look just like we did this week? Probably not, for a lot of reasons, because there's no grade on final presentation week. But it'll be something, we'll be discussing it, and we'll let you know by Thursday, April 2nd. Yeah. April 2nd is when we're back at it. So end of term survey, core class check-ins, and then you enjoy your break. And obviously, in the interest of community, hoping everybody stays healthy, connected, well-resourced. That's where we're at. All right, I'm tipping my cap to y'all. Thank you for final presentation. Invites should be in with your core teachers. 2:15, you'll check in.
Wait, so tomorrow,
Right there.
there's like no school or anything?
Tomorrow there is no school. Tomorrow there is no school. You're finishing up your core class check-ins this afternoon. You're finishing up end of term survey, and then it's spring break tomorrow, next week, and as Kimo said, until April 2nd. April 2nd is the first day of spring term, and we will message to you what things look like April 2nd.
All right, thank you.
Yeah. All right, so like I said, I'm tipping cap to you all, seminar room. Woohoo, we did it. You made it through virtual final presentation. Yeah, take care of the next couple things you have to do. And obviously you can reach out to any of the faculty, staff if you're not sure where to find what you need.
All right,
Take care, y'all.
thank you. Hey.